because if I run that straight away, it prints out the numbers vertically as 0. So it goes from I equals 0 to I is less than 4, that is to say 3, and it uses an end line to print out the values as well to a new line. So it's very useful when learning a language like C++. In fact, it's absolutely essential that we ought to, I'll just stop that program, that we ought to do some exercises. It's almost impossible to do a language like C++ without trying some exercises. So you might like to try these, for example, just to print out some numbers horizontally, and then we print out numbers, 4 lots of numbers. Well, this one requires a loop inside a loop, so I've given you some hints across there. We could just start off with the first one, for example. How would we make the numbers go across the screen from 1 to 4? Well, you might notice that it starts off at 0, so that's a good start. So try at 1, and it needs to go up to 4, so we can press an equal sign in here, so it's less than or equal to 4. You might recall that when we use the C, you use the for loop, you must have a less than sign in there, at least. You can have a less than or equal to. And I guess we're going to print them one beneath the other, so we'll get rid of the end line and just see if that does the trick. If I need to open this up to find my run button, there it is there, so I'll run the code, and you can see that there should be printed out 1 to 4 across as required. Now, as I mentioned, the second exercise involves printing the numbers out one beneath the other like this, and it says here this requires a loop inside a loop. So we might start off by making another loop counter J, for example, and then we therefore would have another for loop here, 4, and then using the same sort of thing here. I should have just copied that in the first place, the whole thing. And just paste that across, and we'll run the loop from J equals something to J equals something to J equals something else. I'll leave you to work that out to get the and then you need to change J here and so on. So I'll leave that to you to try and work out how to do those exercises. Incidentally, I might have mentioned that when we declare our variable int I, it is possible to actually declare it within the loop like this. So I'll just delete that line and then place the int inside, and that will still work. I'll just confirm that by running the program. There are things to consider which we call the scope of a variable. We'll talk about that when we talk about functions, but the scope really is where the variable is recognized, whether it's recognized inside the loop or outside of the loop at the moment, whether I is available outside and that sort of thing. But for the moment, that's just a convenient way of writing the for loop. We'll consider some bits and pieces. If I just try this, rather unusual looking, but I'll just see what it does for the moment. I'm going to run the program. And we should find that we can input characters and press enter each time. But if I input the character A, then it should terminate. So what's actually happening is it's working from the inside out. From the keyboard it will input the value of I. Then as we move out, it checks it out to see whether it's true or false, and that whether it's equal to A or not. And if this is equal to A, then it's true, and if it's not equal to A, it's true. It will continue. But once it hits A, it will terminate the while loop. Well, you might even consider that as today's bit of useless information, but you might actually come across it sometime. We have another construction which is not used all that much. It's the conditional operator. It's rather like an if statement. So I'll just paste that into there. And if I in this case has been given a value of 1 and j has yet to get a value, what happens is that it evaluates this thing here to see whether it's true or false. Now 1 is less than 2, so that will evaluate, at the moment it'll evaluate to true. So this either evaluates to true or false. Now if it's true, whatever comes first after the question mark will be placed into j. If it's a false statement, this bit here will be placed into j. So can you see what the answer is going to be? That is a true statement. So what is the outcome? I'll run the program, and it gives me the value. Once again, I need to halt the program so we can see the output. Well, we also need to see the output as well. So I'll just and you can see the output is indeed 3, which is that because this is a true statement, then the 3 is placed in the j. I mean, we could change that to if I is greater than 2, then which it's not, then that's a false statement, and therefore the 4 should be placed in there. We'll just see if that's true. I must say this is not, you won't see this very often. It's probably just as easy to make a more complex if statement, but you might come across it sometime. I'll just show you these logical operators. I won't actually try them. You can just look and see what they do. They're quite easy to understand, but we've got here I equals 2, and then you've got this is an OR statement, so either these two things is true. So I could be 1, indeed I equals 2, so you will get the output, which is yes. In this case you've got an and you're if I equals 1, this also necessarily has to be true for you to get the and printed out as well. You might wonder why it's a double ampersand here. The single ampersand is used for a few things, one of them being what we call a bitwise and, when you have zeros and ones and you want to compare them and wise, but for the logical and in C++, that's what you would use.